I give the floor to the representative of Somalia.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the honor to deliver this statement on behalf of A3+, mainly Algeria, Guyana, Sierra Leone, and my own country, Somalia.
daawade maxay kula tahay adiga?
We express our appreciation for the presidency for promptly convening this meeting at the request of A3+, joined by China, Pakistan, and Russian Federation. I also want to welcome the participation of the representatives from the Arab League nations, the African Union, Djibouti, Kuwait, South Africa, Turkey, to this meeting. Mr. President, I also want to thank ASG Khalid Kiari for his briefings. Mr. President, A3+ strongly condemns the flagrant assault by Israel on the unity and the territorial integrity of Somalia by recognizing as an independent entity to the northwestern region of Somalia, so-called Somaliland, which is legally incapable of entering into any agreement or arrangement or recognition with another country. Any such purported arrangements are therefore null and void. Further, this action represents a direct violation of the UN Charter, the African Union's fundamental principles, and a breach of cornerstone of the international law. Respect for the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the states. This act of aggression is aimed at encouraging fragmentation of the territory of Somalia, which is the northwestern region, is an integral part and is destabilizing the Horn of Africa, entire Horn of Africa, and the Red Sea region. It should be firmly rejected and condemned unequivocally by all member states. A3+ therefore rejects this announcement by Israel and calls for it to be rescinded. In this regard, A3+ aligns itself with the recent statements of the chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Mahmoud Ali Yusuf, in categorically rejecting all attempts at undermining the independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity of Somalia. A3+ reaffirms the long-standing and consistent position of the African Union, rooted firmly in the constitutive act of the Union and the principles of respecting borders inherited at independence, as proclaimed in 1964 decision of the Organization of African Unity, Cairo Declaration. We further call on all member states to take a unified and principled stand against this illegal action, which undermines the very foundation of the international legal order. A3+ seizes this opportunity to welcome all regional, international, bilateral, and multilateral partners who express their clear support and the commitment to the sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity of Somalia.
daawade maxay kula tahay adiga?
Mr. President, taking note of the statements made by some officials regarding the forced involuntary relocation of Palestinians from their homeland to other countries, A3+ unequivocally reject any steps aimed at advancing this objective, including any attempt by Israel to relocate the Palestinian population from Gaza to northwestern region of Somalia.
daawade maxay kula tahay adiga?
This action is not only unlawful, but is morally reprehensible. Recalling the provisional measures and advisory opinion of the International Court of Justice regarding the forcible displacement of Palestinian people from their land, we call on Israel to comply with its legal obligations on this matter. A3+ will neither accept nor condone the illegal use of any territory, let alone that of sovereign state, which is a member of the United Nations, to deny the right of self-determination to a people who have been subjected to crimes against humanity for many, many years. Neither the future of the Palestinian people nor the territorial sovereignty of Somalia can be used as a bargaining chip. This utter disdain for law and morality must be stopped now. We further underscore our steadfast support for the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people, including their right to self-determination and their right to their homeland in accordance with the two-state solution. Rather than contributing genuinely to the commendable international peace efforts in the Middle East through the long overdue recognition of independent, sovereign Palestinian state, Israel has instead chosen to project instability to the Horn of Africa, promote divisions and create new sources of tensions in the region already facing multidimensional and complex challenges.
daawade maxay kula tahay adiga?
Mr. President, in closing, A3 Plus reiterates its unwavering commitment to the Somalis' unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. No external actor has the legitimacy or authority to alter the unity, the sovereignty, or territorial configuration of Somalia or any other sovereign state. Israel's action not only set a dangerous precedent, but also posed a serious threat to regional and international peace and security. A3 Plus calls again on the international community to uphold its responsibility under the United Nations Charter and to reject any act that undermines the sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity of Somalia or the rights of the Palestinian people through a manipulative and immoral actions. I thank you, Mr. President.
daawade maxay kula tahay adiga?
The representative of Somalia has asked for the floor to make further statement. I give him the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me again the floor. Before proceeding further, I want to make additional remarks in my capacity as a Somali representative of Somalia to directly address the claims made by the representative of Israel who spoke before me. I will make 3 points, Excellency. First, actions of occupying power in Palestine and indeed in the broader region are well documented. These actions constitute clear violations of international law. What we see today and time again are acts to terrorize civilian populations and crimes against humanity and forced displacement of a whole community, starvation of innocent people, and killing and maiming hundreds of thousands. And someone doing all these things are lecturing us today what they call genocide and things like that. I'm shocked to listen to the outrageous comments from the Israeli representative. If we want to talk about genocide, it's Israel that's committing on our own eyes every day. He represents a government that killed more than 70,000 people, civilians, including children, women, elderly, doctors, and other health workers, and patients in hospitals, destroying infrastructures, deliberately starving people of Gaza. To come before us, esteemed council, and accuse Somalia of committing genocide is just ridiculous and it's unbelievable. The other thing that I want to add is he has no idea what Somalia is and where Somalis are and what Somali stands for. I think the history is a selective history that he has just generated on his own mind. Let me give you some lessons on this. There is a systematic, it's a troubling, Somalia is one country, one people, one religion that fought together for independence from the colonial. And Somalia is again one that's fighting terrorist organizations in the Horn of Africa as a one group, one religion, one ethnic group. And then when you say the Somaliland that was a British Somaliland, it was two regions, the Northeast region and Northwest region. And now Northeast region is part of which is 45% of the land and the population are part of the federal government of Somalia. What we're talking about is Northwest, which is also having a problem. Half of Northwest is now all the region, which is close to the Djibouti border. And they are totally against what the Isaq people that you say, Isaq genocide. And there was no such genocide in Somalia that took place. Somalia had a civil war, and the civil war has its own effects. And we believe the civil war was also financed from outside. So to come to this place and lecture us humanity and genocide and human rights and independence and democracy, and we know what you're doing on a daily basis, is just an insult. And I cannot take it without responding to this. I thank you, Mr. President.
daawade maxay kula tahay adiga?
I thank the representative of Somalia for the statement.
President, I thank you for convening this meeting. China fully supports the request by Somalia, Algeria, Sierra Leone, and Guyana for an emergency council meeting. I thank SG Chiari for the briefing. On December 26, Israel announced its formal recognition of Somaliland as a so-called independent sovereign state and established full diplomatic relations with it. This has further increased the tensions in the Horn of Africa, drawing immediate and strong criticism and condemnations from regional organizations including the AU Arab League, GCC, OIC, and IGAD, as well as many regional countries. China also expresses grave concern over this move and firmly opposes it. Respect for sovereignty and territorial integrity is a fundamental principle of the UN Charter and an unshakable cornerstone of international law and international relations, which all UN member states must strictly observe. Somaliland is an inalienable part of Somali territory. China firmly supports Somalia's sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity and opposes any act to split its territory. China has always maintained that the Somaliland issue is entirely Somalia's internal affairs. It should be resolved by the Somali people in a way consistent with the national conditions and the Constitution. Non-regional countries should cease unwarranted interference. No country should aid and abet separatist forces in other countries to further their own geopolitical interests. We urge the relevant country to act responsibly, strictly observe the UN Charter and international law, heed the call of the international community, immediately rectify its erroneous act, and eliminate the negative effects as soon as possible. We urge the Somaliland authorities to grasp the situation, immediately stop separatist activities and collusion with external forces, and return to the track of dialogue with the federal government of Somalia as soon as possible to avoid further threatening regional peace and stability and opening the door to more tensions and conflicts. President, Somalia is at a critical juncture in its political and security transition. The international community should assist the country in strengthening counterterrorism capabilities, advancing political dialogue, and promoting national unity. As a good friend of Somalia and regional countries, China will continue to firmly support Somalia's sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity, uphold fairness and justice, and together with the international community, worked harder for the peace, stability, development, and prosperity in Somalia and in the region. Thank you, President.
daawade maxay kula tahay adiga?
Give the floor to the representative of the United Kingdom.
Thank you, President. I thank ASG Chiari for briefing us. I will make 3 points. First, the United Kingdom reaffirms its support for the sovereignty, territorial integrity, political independence, and unity of Somalia. The UK does not recognise Somaliland's independence. We maintain that any change to Somaliland's status depends on mutual agreement between Mogadishu and Hargeisa through dialogue and must conform to the purposes and principles of the UN Charter. We regret any action that risks undermining peace and security in the region. Second, we urge further efforts between the federal government of Somalia and the Somaliland authorities to address differences and work together to face common threats. Al-Shabaab and other terrorist organisations benefit from internal divisions in Somalia. We encourage Mogadishu and Hargeisa to pursue dialogue with the support of regional bodies and the international community to resolve these divisions. Third, we underscore the importance of continued international support to Somalia's security transition. Just this month, the Council renewed its authorisations for the African Union Support and Stabilisation Mission in Somalia, extended the provision of the UN logistical support to AWSOM through UNSOS, mandated a strong package of sanction measures to degrade Al-Shabaab. In September, the United Kingdom announced a contribution of over $30 million to support Somalia's security transition, including $22 million to AWSOM. As a close and long-standing partner of Somalia, we remain committed to supporting the federal government in its efforts to build a secure and stable Somalia. We urge greater international support to this end. In closing, President, the UK also welcomes the peaceful conduct of the local elections in Mogadishu and reaffirms its support for Somalia's democratic aspirations. We encourage all political actors to work together to reach consensus on next steps. Thank you.
The representative of the Russian Federation.
Господин председатель.
President, we thank Assistant Secretary General Khalid Kiari for his briefing. We, much like the majority of our Security Council colleagues, we are deeply concerned by Israel's politically motivated decision to recognize the independence of Somaliland. This decision is at odds with the sovereignty, territorial integrity, and the unity of the Federal Republic of Somalia. We very much understand the well-founded reaction to this decision on the part of the government of the Federal Republic of Somalia, the African Union leadership, regional states, and Arab and Muslim countries. We are concerned by potential consequences, including about a potential escalation of tensions in the Horn of Africa and beyond. In principle, we are in favor of settling intra-Somalian contradictions on the basis of inclusive national dialogue without any external interference. We support Mogadishu's efforts to resolve security threats, to establish lasting peace, and to implement its sovereign priorities, factoring in the cultural and historical diversity of this multi-ethnic nation. We call on interests not to attempt to further their own geopolitical regions in the Horn of Africa region by capitalizing on the systemic problems of African states. We'd also like to emphasize that decisions akin to the one taken by the Israeli cabinet risk further complicating the efforts of Mogadishu and its partners' efforts to combat al-Shabaab terrorists. Colleagues, just last week, speaking in this very chamber on the topic of the vote on the Security Council resolution on AWSOM, the AU Support and Stabilization Mission in Somalia, members of this council spoke at length about the price that's been paid for these efforts. Above all, the price involved thousands of lives laid down by African peacekeepers, Somalian security forces and civilians. We cannot forget this. On a separate note, it's worth noting that current complex challenges we see in Somalia are, to a large extent, the consequences of the onerous legacy of the era of Western colonialism. The same can be said for other African states. I think it's an open secret to all in this chamber where the root causes of the majority of territorial disputes and inter-ethnic and interfaith contradictions in contemporary Africa lie. The Russian Federation and the USSR before it constantly spoke of this, both at the Security Council and at the General Assembly. Together with a wide array of like-minded countries, the Russian Federation continues to combat colonialism in all of its forms, first and foremost by helping to build a genuinely multipolar world based on equal and mutually beneficial interstate relations, free from diktats, free from external interference. Specifically, In December, the group of Friends in Defence of the UN Charter submitted a resolution that was adopted by the General Assembly, a resolution proclaiming the 14th of December the International Day Against Colonialism. As the situation we're discussing today shows, Africa still needs such active international efforts aimed at anti-colonialism. We call on all sensible states interested in helping to build a genuinely independent and successful African development models to join us. In the anti-colonial context, in relation to the situation in Somalia, it's also important to repeat our principled position. Voluntary financial assistance to Somalians is provided free of charge. It cannot be preconditioned on the fulfilling of political requirements. By way of conclusion, we'd like to express our solidarity with the government of the Federal Republic of Somalia and the Somalian people during this difficult period. Russia will continue supporting Mogadishu in combating both international terrorism as well as efforts to exert unilateral political and economic pressure. I thank you.
I thank the representative of.
شكرا سيد الرئيس.
Thank you, Mr. President. At the outset, I would like to thank you for having accepted to hold this meeting at short notice at such a critical time. And I would like to reaffirm that today Egypt is taking part in this meeting because we have deep historical ties with Somalia. Indeed, Egypt was among the first states to recognize Somalia's independence in 1960. And since that time, Egypt has always supported stability in Somalia. We remember with great pride the sacrifices of our martyrs who gave their lives in defending the independence and territorial integrity of Somalia, which really is the embodiment of the bonds of brotherhood and common destiny that link together our two peoples. While the Somali state is moving forward to building its national institutions, and as the Somali state continues to fight the unjust terrorism, and as it continues to shape its future to turn a page on the past, Somalia now finds itself facing a new challenge today, namely Israel's recognition of the region termed Somaliland. This is a very serious precedent and a blatant violation of the principles of international law and the United Nations Charter, and is a direct assault on the sovereignty, unity and territorial integrity of Somalia. The recognition of the independence of parts of the territory of a sovereign state is not only an infringement of that country's sovereignty, it's also a direct threat to international peace and security. And it clearly contradicts the well-established principles of international law and the foundations of the African Union. The founding fathers of the Organization of African Unity were wise in scrupulously respecting the borders inherited from the colonial era, and they did this in order to avert any conflict in the region and to preserve the political and social fabric of the African continent. And this also helped to strengthen regional cooperation rather than sowing the seeds of further division. In line with the joint statement of 21 Arab, African and Islamic states, and in accordance with the statement of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and the Gulf Cooperation Council, and also in line with the declaration made by the observer of the League of Arab States and the representative of the African Union, Egypt for its part, has unequivocally refused to recognize Israel's recognition of what is called the Somaliland region. We have condemned this measure because it's a direct violation of the sovereignty, unity and territorial integrity of Somalia. This measure also is a serious risk for peace and security in the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea region, which is a natural extension of Egyptian national security. This solidarity reflects the nature and scope of the international rejection of Israel's move, and we believe that the number of states and organizations opposing this in coming days will continue to grow, because this decision risks fueling similar tendencies and practices in other regions of the world. Egypt therefore calls upon this esteemed council to unite in rejecting and condemning this Israeli action, which will undoubtedly have serious repercussions for peace, security, stability and safety of millions of African and Arab peoples in East Africa and the Horn of Africa, especially since this measure coincides with sincere regional and national efforts to resolve any outstanding inter-Somalian issues. Mr. President, during the current month, your Council has made commendable efforts led by the United Kingdom to reaffirm support for Somalia by renewing the sanctions regime imposed on al-Shabaab and also extending the mandate of the African Union mission in Somalia. You also supported efforts to strengthen the capacities of the Somali state, and you also backed national reconstruction and development endeavors in Somalia. Unfortunately, this unilateral Israeli move undermines this collective constructive effort and contradicts the foundations upon which the Council's approach is based, and this has been the case now for years, even decades. An approach confirming the unity of Somalia over all of its territory. Instead of focusing our efforts on encouraging the Somali government to exert further efforts aimed at consolidating the pillars of stability and move toward the path of reconciliation and greater political participation, unfortunately, regrettably, we have to focus today on the repercussions of these unilateral Israeli actions that undermine these efforts. Measures which threaten the political process that your Council has consistently called for, and destabilizing the region and risking dragging Somalia into regional confrontations, whereas Somalia is not a direct party to those confrontations. Mr. President, the security and stability of Somalia is an extension of the security and stability of Egypt, and that's why Egypt believes that any move likely to fuel unrest in Somalia will not only have repercussions within Somalia itself, but will also threaten the region, creating uncertainty and instability. This will also embolden terrorist organizations, foremost among them al-Shabaab. They will use the current situation to expand their terrorist activities, thereby posing a real threat to regional and international peace and security. In conclusion, Mr. President, I'd like to reaffirm that your Council assume the responsibility to work against this unilateral Israeli move. It's not only about preserving the credibility of the Council's handling of the Somali file for years now, it's also an issue of upholding the role of the Council in safeguarding the principles that are at the core of the UN Charter and the international rules-based order. We look forward to this Council sending out a clear and unambiguous message to reaffirm the unity and sovereignty of Somalia. There can be no manipulation whatever the message used. A message that will reject any attempt to undermine the sovereignty of Somalia. Thank you.
I thank the representative of Egypt for the statement. I now give the floor.
Mr. President, thank you for convening this meeting at a time when the principles of international order are once again openly challenged. We also thank ASG Chiari for his briefing. Following up on the joint statement issued on 26 December by the Ministers of Foreign Affairs of a broad group of countries, including Turkey, as well as the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, I will make 3 points today. First, Turkey firmly rejects Israel's announcement, which constitutes a clear and serious violation of international law and the Charter of the UN. Unilateral recognition of a region that is a part of a sovereign UN member state directly undermines principles of sovereignty, territorial integrity, and non-interference. This announcement constitutes another example of the Netanyahu government's unlawful actions aimed at creating instability at both regional and global level. Such conduct cannot be normalized, ignored, or can be excused. Secondly, this announcement sets a dangerous precedent with far-reaching consequences. Undermining sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity of the Federal Republic of Somalia, a UN member state, is a blatant threat to international peace and security and risks encouraging fragmentation and instability, particularly in the Horn of Africa and the Red Sea. Moreover, this step by Israel, who persists its expansionist policies and which spares no effort to prevent recognition of the state of Palestine, amounts to an explicit intervention in Somalia's internal affairs. Decisions regarding the future of the Federal Republic of Somalia and the Somaliland region should and will be taken by the Somalis alone. Thirdly, Turkey reiterates its full and unwavering support for the sovereignty, unity, and territorial integrity of the Federal Republic of Somalia over its entire territory. We reject any measures aimed at undermining Somalia's unity or weakening its internationally recognized borders, as well as its focus and efforts to combat Al-Shabaab terrorism, which we support. We also reject any attempts to link this step to broader agendas that violate international law, including efforts aimed at the forcible displacement of the Palestinian people from their land, which are unacceptable in principle and must be rejected in all its forms. Mr. President, Turkey remains firmly committed to peace and stability in the Horn of Africa. We will continue to stand by the Federal Government and the people of Somalia and work relentlessly with regional and international partners toward this end. In this context, we expect the Security Council to uphold its responsibilities under the UN Charter and to respond clearly to actions that threaten the sovereignty of a UN member state, as well as international peace and security. We also call on all UN member states to explicitly reject Israel's announcement recognizing the independence of the Somaliland region of the Federal Republic of Somalia. Thank you.